Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Who wants to hear about my home city, Portland, Oregon? Yeah, you've probably had enough of me talking about San Francisco and Fresno in a bad manner, so now it's time for me to talk about my home city in a bad manner. I was born in Portland, Oregon, and I lived in the city right next to Portland, Beaverton, Oregon, all my life. I visited Portland frequently during my college years because I currently go to college at Portland State University in downtown Portland, obviously, and I've gotten to know the city pretty well. I know the city and the neighboring city like the back of my hand. I know a lot of the best places of the city, the worst places of the city, and that's what I'm here to talk about. Yeah, Portland's a great city overall. In fact, a lot of people have been moving to Portland, Oregon, as well as the state of Oregon as a whole recently, due to the fact that it's a very friendly city and state for families. At least it was up until right now, what's going on right now in downtown Portland. And it has lower taxes, at least lower taxes than our neighboring state, California. It's much cleaner, and it's easier to navigate around compared to cities like San Francisco, New York, and other huge cities. Yeah, Portland's a great city, but it's not for everyone. In fact, for every pro of Portland, there's always a con of Portland. And you might be thinking of moving to Portland right now, and I can understand that. But before you move to Portland, Oregon, you should definitely watch my 5 reasons why you should not move to Portland, Oregon. Number 5, keep Portland weird. Now, this is something you should definitely take into consideration before moving to the city. If you're new to Portland, Oregon, you should know that our main motto is keep Portland weird. Mainly in part because we're a very, very liberal city, and a lot of the weirdest of the weird you are ever going to imagine happens here in Portland, Oregon. From a man spray painted in silver who stands still like a statue so he can look like a statue, to a man dressed up as Darth Vader riding a unicycle on the streets, in the neighborhoods, and even at the airport. Portland has the weirdest things you can ever imagine. Number 4, homelessness. Now, the good news is Portland is not San Francisco or Los Angeles when it comes to the homeless problem. The bad news is we still have a homeless problem, and it's actually pretty bad. Now, it isn't exactly horrible bad. It's not San Francisco or Los Angeles bad, but it is pretty bad. Even though it has been on the decline in recent years, it hasn't exactly been bright every single year since I started college in 2017. And it looks like it might have gotten worse since the pandemic. Now, I only passed through the city twice during the pandemic, ever since it started back in mid-March. But I did see on the second time I came that there was an entire encampment of homeless people all in one block on the east side of the Willamette River in Portland, in one of the little more industrial areas of Portland. The homeless population in Portland is still pretty bad, especially in certain districts like the Lloyd district or the district where we have the Portland Saturday Market by the Burnside Bridge. Even when the Portland Saturday Market is in session there, the homeless problem can still be present. Now, like I said, it has gone down in recent years, like I've seen, but it is still a very big problem here in Portland, especially when you go to Burnside Road and look at the giant amount of homeless encampments over there. Number 3, construction season. Yeah, Portland, Oregon is pretty much under construction all year round. We are constantly building new structures, new buildings, or expanding or renovating on older buildings pretty much every single year in this city. And well, I have to confirm if this information is true or not. My professor in Accounting 381 did say that Portland, Oregon sees more construction cranes on a yearly basis than pretty much any other city in the United States, including New York City. And I wouldn't be surprised if that were true, because every single day I am in Portland, there's at least one place that is under construction. They are at least building one new structure, whether it's in Western Portland or Eastern Portland, whether it's a new office building, hotel, apartment building, multi-use building, warehouse, or even if they're just renovating or expanding on an old building. Portland, Oregon is pretty much has cranes, gates, and hard hats every single year and is continuing to expand. And at this rate, we will pretty soon be as big as Seattle. Number 2, it's a blue city in a blue state. Yeah, Portland is so liberal, and so is its neighboring city, Eugene, that the entire state of Oregon is literally a blue state because of it. And keep this in mind if you're moving here from a red state or a red city. Don't be surprised if you see a lot of people here smoking weed, doing all of the things that you would see happening in liberal cities and states, as well as protesting and rioting. If you've been watching the news recently, you know for a fact that there have been a lot of protests and riots here in Portland since March, ever since the death of George Floyd. So do keep this in mind. If you're moving here from, let's say, Texas, Alabama, or any other red state or red city, such as, I don't know, Houston, I would say, I mean, based on my understanding, that's also red city, then do keep this in mind when you move to Portland, Oregon. Number 1, the weather. If you're moving from a city or state such as San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, any place in California, as well as Arizona, New Mexico, or Texas, then do keep in mind that the weather in Oregon is anything but the weather in those states. If you're more used to hotter, warmer climates or drier climates, then keep that in mind before you move to Oregon or anywhere in Oregon to begin with, except maybe Eastern Oregon, because in Portland, Oregon, we see more rainfall than pretty much any other city in the Pacific Northwest or on the West Coast, except maybe Seattle. Yeah, Portland, Oregon has a lot, and I mean a lot of rain, including during the summer times. And also, let's not forget that now it's snowing in Portland. Yeah, once a year. Back then, like 10 years ago, snow was a once every 2 to 3 years kind of thing in Oregon, in Portland in general. And now it's an almost every year kind of thing. So if you're used to warmer climates, if you can't stand the rain or the snow, then reconsider moving to Portland, Oregon. Well, folks, that covers my 5 reasons why you shouldn't move to Portland, Oregon. I hope you found this very interesting and very informative. Yeah, Portland, Oregon is a great city. My home city has a lot of things going for it and against it. It's a lot cheaper to live in Portland, Oregon than other major cities on the west side of the United States. Even though the price of housing is skyrocketing here, it's a lot easier to get around than other cities, other major cities in particular, like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Seattle. However, it's not for everyone, especially those who can't handle this kind of weather or those who come from red cities or red states. And for me personally, I am actually reconsidering living in Portland. I want to consider moving to someplace like Indianapolis, Birmingham, Tulsa, or Madison in the future. I feel like those cities would suit me more than Portland, Oregon. I don't know if it's because of the fact that I just don't think Portland, Oregon is my city, or I think that I just gotten bored of Portland since I've been living here literally in my whole life. But that wraps up everything, folks. Do stay tuned for more videos, and of course, stay safe out there.